Beirut hostage is released because of illness, and the hijackers offer a new deal to free the rest. In Torquay tonight, police find a possible IRA bomb. The Chancellor and the CBI fall out over interest rates. Labour and the TUC get closer on economic policy. Guerrillas blow up a petrol depot in South Africa. And an unknown at his first Wimbledon knocks out the number 4 seed. Good evening. On the 13th day of the TWA hijack, one of the hostages is on his way home. Jimmy Del Palma, who has a heart condition, was released in what the Shiite leader Nabi Berri called a humanitarian gesture. And Berri made the United States an offer to transfer the other 39 hostages to a Western embassy in Beirut until the problem of the hijackers' demands is sorted out. But there were strings attached. America would have to keep her fleet out of Lebanese waters and promise not to retaliate once the hostage affair is over. The White House tonight said the only solution was the prompt release of all the hostages and refused to comment on Mr. Berri's offer.
It was Mr. Berri's reply to President Reagan's tough talk of blockades or worse. Jimmy Del Palma from Little Rock, Arkansas, has a bad heart, and Mr. Berri produced him, spoke of him being home by American Independence Day next week, and announced his plan to put the rest of the hostages under the protection of a Western embassy here on condition the U.S. Navy task force stays away from the Lebanese coast. Mr. Palmer was by no means cowed when asked if he sympathized with his hijackers.
Of the original hijackers, no. The people, Mr. Berri's people, I suppose, yes, I have a lot of sympathy for them. But the original hijackers, no, I do not have any sympathy for them.
Then for Jimmy Palmer, who described himself as just a typical American, but whose life will probably never be quite the same again, one final ordeal by photographers before his ride to freedom. The diplomatic strands are starting to come together. Last night, President Reagan was talking tough. Then he received word via the British ambassador here, Sir David Myers, that Mr. Berri was now convinced that Washington would not back down, and he was prepared to give some ground. A Western diplomat here involved in trying to end the affair peacefully says, 2 days ago, the future looked grim. Now, given common sense all round, it could end peacefully. But it's not over yet. It needs a response now from President Reagan. For the time being, at least, TWA Flight 847 will continue to sit on the runway at Beirut Airport. A reminder to Mr. Palmer as he took off to freedom, not that one would be needed, of the hostages he's left behind. With regret, he said. Half an hour later, when he arrived in Cyprus to the sort of reception only Americans can lay on, live TV pictures beamed into millions of homes across the Atlantic, Mr. Palmer, perhaps realizing for the first time that after 13 days with his life in the balance, he was at last really free, had a brief message for his family.
I'm just happy to be out of Beirut and with American people.
In Beirut, one of the crew of the hijacked plane was taken to hospital after the gunman had said he was dying. But as Keith Graves reports again, he was taken back to the plane after medical tests.
Behind him, Mr. Palmer left another drama on board the hijacked aircraft. A gunman demanded a doctor. "We have a dying man on board. We do not want to take responsibility," he said. Soon afterwards, after cameramen had been ordered away at gunpoint, First Officer Philip Maresca was taken off the aircraft and to hospital in Beirut. But within an hour he was back and he told the control tower, "I'm okay now." Mr. Maresca had a message for his government. "Let's wrap this up. It's gone on long enough. We want the hostages on both sides, Lebanon and Israel, released." But for now, he's spending his 13th night on the aircraft.
Israel had been planning to release another batch of Shiite prisoners tomorrow, but the Israelis have postponed the move because they don't want it to look as though they're responding to the freeing of the American in Beirut.
The 70 Shiite prisoners were due to be released from the Atlit military compound, the second batch to be freed this week. However, the unexpected release of one of the American hostages in Beirut changed all that. By freeing 31 Shiites on Monday and now postponing freedom for the rest, Israel is displaying its determination not to get involved in any tit-for-tat exercise with Shiite leader Nabi Berri, though apparently willing to still negotiate with him.
Of course, we are ready to negotiate with anyone in Lebanon about our relationship, about settling all the common matters, but we know very well that Mr. Berri is not ready for it, is not ready to accept any contacts with us.
In an effort to thaw the present frosty American-Israeli relations over the crisis, Prime Minister Shimon Peres has asked President Reagan for maximum coordination in future handling of the hostage situation. Israel's basic position, however, remains unchanged, insisting that all the Shiite prisoners will eventually be freed, that their release has absolutely nothing to do with the hostage crisis, that Israel will not take the initiative because it's up to the United States to make a formal request before setting them free.
A hotel in Torquay has been cleared of staff and guests after police found what could be a bomb hidden in one of the rooms there. The Palm Court Hotel was cleared about an hour and a half ago after the suspect object was found. An army bomb disposal squad from Plymouth has been called in. Torquay was one of the 12 resorts listed as possible targets of a new IRA bombing campaign.
The Assistant Chief Constable of Devon and Cornwall Police, Mr. Rupert Ormerod, said something suspicious had been found in the hotel, and bomb disposal experts were examining one particular area of a particular room at the front of the hotel. The hotel was checked when, as a result of examining all hotel registers, the police found people they were interested in had stayed at the Palm Court. Police had pictures of the people, and hotel staff confirmed that they had stayed there. In the meantime, the whole seafront area of Torquay has been sealed off.
Earlier, police investigating the IRA plan to bomb holiday resorts arrested 4 more people, 3 in Lancashire and 1 in Strathclyde. It means 16 people are now being held. This afternoon, a dozen police chiefs and a group of MPs from the towns on the IRA hit list were briefed at Scotland Yard about the huge security Operation Sandcastle. There have been several bomb alerts around the country and the public are being urged to stay vigilant. Our Home Affairs correspondent Bill Hamilton reports.
It was a rare event, but one which served to illustrate the size of the job. A dozen police chiefs summoned to Scotland Yard to hear the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, Sir Kenneth Newman, tell them how he means to conduct Operation Sandcastle. The safety of scores of holidaymakers could lie in the hands of these men. They've got just 3 weeks to find any possible explosives that may have been planted by the IRA at 12 resorts police believe had been targeted for a summer bombing campaign. 18 Conservative MPs who represent seaside constituencies also arrived tonight to be told how they can help. They included one who'd had a remarkable escape from the Brighton bombing last October.
We're extremely lucky. We were over the top of the Prime Minister's accommodation, but in the outside block, so we got away with it scot-free.
Now, you've been summoned to Scotland Yard this afternoon. What do you think MPs as a body can achieve?
Well, I suppose we're opinion formers, we're communicators. I think the public will listen to our voice.
Even as Mr. Hill was speaking to us, there was chaos in his constituency. Traffic jams built up, houses had to be evacuated, and trains in and out of Southampton were at a standstill for 5 hours after a British rail workman spotted a suspicious device in a tunnel. It was connected to a battery, had wires protruding, and was blown up by an army bomb disposal team. Another squad has been called to a hotel in Torquay tonight. In Yarmouth, where Norfolk police believe there's every possibility of a bomb, the painstaking job of checking every boarding house and hotel goes on relentlessly. In Glasgow, yesterday's strict security around Stewart Street Police Station, where 9 people are being held, was stepped up even further. Armed officers were on constant lookout in neighbouring flats. Even police cars arriving at the station had to be inspected. Tonight, senior officers from the south of England who've been hunting the Brighton bomber were due to arrive. They include the head of Sussex CID, Detective Chief Superintendent Jack Rees, who could come face to face with the person he most wants to meet, a 33-year-old Belfast man nicknamed the Chancer. Others held here are believed to include an escapee from the Maze prison, who's wanted for questioning in Dublin in connection with the kidnapping of supermarket boss Don Tidy and the murders of an Irish soldier and a policeman.
MPs are discussing Northern Ireland in the Commons tonight. They're due to approve the order to continue direct rule. Later, the opposition may force a vote on the order to continue the Emergency Provisions Act, which provides for no jury courts, among other things. The Chancellor, Nigel Lawson, and the employers' organisation, the CBI, fell out today over priorities in economic policy. The CBI want lower interest rates. The Chancellor told them to get wage rises down first. At the same time, the Labour Party and the TUC started out on the road towards agreement on the economy between a Labour government and the unions. Here's our political editor, John Cole.
Wages, the problem child of the British economy, dominates the thinking of this government and of its possible Labour successor. Today, the Chancellor, Nigel Lawson, stung by a rise of 9% in private sector earnings, ticked off the men who concede them in the CBI for demanding lower interest rates. He argued that 1% saving on wages was worth much more than 1% off interest rates. Lower pay settlements were far more important to business even than lower interest rates, and the link between pay and jobs was well established. Sir Terence Beckett, the CBI boss, retorted that it was high interest rates and their effect on mortgages that made it hard to keep wage rises down. Privately, the CBI are very irritated because they can't make the Chancellor understand how much damage they think the high interest rates are causing. But John Biffen, Mr Lawson's cabinet colleague, played a different tune to the Chancellor's renewed pledge of tax cuts. He warned Conservatives that the badge of social meanness was being pinned on the Prime Minister and the government. They were being depicted as interested only in tax cuts to help the better off, whereas they were spending money, he said, on health, schools and urban decay. They must talk more about the true face of social Toryism. That's a thinly disguised hint of Mr Biffen's opposition to the Chancellor in the battle over public spending cuts that's just begun. The Labour Party and the TUC today embarked on 2 years hard talking about the economy. 6 years ago, the collapse of Labour's agreement with the unions on wages, followed by the winter of discontent, destroyed the Callaghan government and brought Mrs Thatcher to power. This time, party leaders want an understanding that will endure, but it's very much a matter of tiptoeing among the tulips. The document Neil Kinnock, Norman Willis and their colleagues endorsed today says unemployment, inflation and income distribution can only be dealt with through partnership between unions and government. It rules out statutory norms and government-imposed wage restraint. The Shadow Chancellor, Roy Hattersley, agrees with that, but he's made clear to the unions that the figure they settle on for wage increases will affect the speed at which a Labour government could reduce unemployment, and that there's got to be a norm agreed between unions and government. But the new leader of the Transport Union, Ron Todd, yesterday ruled out any restraints on pay. He said pay restraint, incomes policies, whatever they were called, had divided the Labour movement and done nothing for the economy. He said if the National Economic Assessment meant no more than pay policy, his union could have no part in it.
Labour's executive also voted to give financial help to Liverpool and Lambeth councils who've defied the government's limits on rates. But the resolution did not condone illegal action. Afterwards, Liverpool's deputy leader Derek Hatton said his councillors would be very encouraged. In both Liverpool and Lambeth, councillors face fines and disqualification. Friends and former colleagues of the late Lord George Brown met for a memorial service at St Margaret's Church in Westminster today. George Brown died 3 weeks ago at the age of 70. The congregation said goodbye with the song My Way. His brother said it represented virtually everything he stood for. 80 underprivileged children were treated to a tea party at the Houses of Parliament today. The party followed a guided tour of the Commons and a river trip, all organised by the Variety Club of Great Britain. Plenty of famous faces were on hand to share the jelly and ice cream and sign autographs. In South Africa, 8 black people were killed in a series of grenade attacks in townships near Johannesburg. They were mostly on the homes of black policemen, and several of the victims had apparently been handling the grenades themselves. In the black homeland of Transkei, there's been a huge fire at a fuel depot in the capital, Umtata.
The explosion occurred at around 2:30 this morning and shook the capital of this South African-created black homeland. Thousands of tons of fuel were set alight, while explosions elsewhere in Umtata damaged a water pipeline and a power station. 6 hours later, the fire was still burning, with virtually all the fuel tanks destroyed. South African officials who obtained this country's oil secretly in defiance of an international embargo would not discuss how much oil was lost. Transkei's police chief said he believed the explosions were caused by limpet mines, the device normally used by the outlawed African National Congress. Explosions are occurring almost daily at present in South Africa. Pretoria has already retaliated once through its recent raid on alleged ANC targets in Botswana. While attacks like this continue, a further reprisal raid into another black state cannot be ruled out.
Zimbabwe's white voters go to the polls tomorrow to elect their own 20 MPs, but the real contest will be next week when the 80 black MPs are elected. Our correspondent Michael Burke, in the second of his special reports, says there's little doubt that Mr Mugabe's ruling ZANU-PF party will emerge the winner.
Across Zimbabwe, a tribal call to vote for another 5 years of Robert Mugabe's scientific socialism. It's a call that's obeyed time and again in these country areas, thousands marshalled and searched at huge party rallies. The mood amongst the faithful is almost evangelistic. The cult of party and personality has been intense. Mr Mugabe was a surprise victor at independence 5 years ago. He's used that time since to cement his hold on his party and most of Zimbabwe's people. He's been ruthless with opponents, but has promised these elections will be free and fair. The party machine, though, has become the state machine. The election result is not really in doubt. Five years after the war, Zimbabwe is still in a state of emergency. The military and police sometimes seem extensions of party power, but there has not been the civil war many feared. Mugabe, the Marxist who tolerates free enterprise, runs a successful African country. Certainly agriculture here is booming. £3 million worth of tobacco sold here in Harare today. 300 million of precious foreign exchange for the crop. The farmers, black and white, have done well out of independence. The town people less so. Outside the tobacco factories of Harare, big queues of unemployed. The foreign currency, Mr Mugabe's critics say, is being squandered. £100 million is being spent on a conference centre. 4,500 seats, materials and builders from abroad. Nobody knows where the customers will come from. That foreign exchange could have been spent on new buses. Public transport in Zimbabwe is running down, starved of money and of spare parts.
An independent police inquiry into the murder of Miss Hilda Murrell, the anti-nuclear campaigner, has cleared British intelligence services of any involvement. But West Mercia police are criticised for their handling of the original investigation. The inquiry was set up after allegations that Miss Murrell was killed by a blundering Secret Service agent 15 months ago.
Hilda Murrell was 78 when she was killed in March last year. She was attacked in her home near Shrewsbury, bundled into her own car and driven to a country lane. It seems that after a struggle in the car, the vehicle left the road and became stuck in mud. Miss Murrell was dragged into a field, stabbed and left to die. Her body wasn't found for 3 days. Miss Murrell was a well-known anti-nuclear campaigner and the aunt of Commander Robert Green, an officer who served in naval intelligence during the Falklands War. Labour MP Tam Diel claimed in Parliament he had information that British intelligence officers killed Miss Murrell. He said she disturbed them, searching for documents about the sinking of the General Belgrano. The inquest coroner described this as rubbish. An inquiry into the way West Mercia police investigated Miss Murrell's death was carried out by Peter Smith, Assistant Chief Constable of Northumbria. This too discounts any involvement in her death by British intelligence.
Now, I went to the highest echelons in British security, naval security, telecom and the post office. For my inquiries, which have taken me thousands of miles to various parts of the country, interviewing many, many people, everybody whom I thought might be able to help, There is not one shred of evidence to even suggest that British intelligence were in any way involved in the murder of Hilda Morell.
But the report criticises West Mercia police for the 3-day delay in finding Miss Morell's body, which it says hampered the early investigation and gave rise to speculation. There's also criticism of the way the police followed up the connection between Miss Morell's death and the activities of a private detective who'd been investigating anti-nuclear objectors. The report also says police handling of inquiries from the media could have been better. After his long inquiry, Mr. Smith still finds the case baffling.
This probably has been one of the most bizarre murder cases that I've come across or even read about, during the whole of my service.
At the High Court, the bloodstock auctioneers Tattersalls have been cleared of negligence over the sale of a yearling colt. The owners of Sulafa had sued the auctioneers and a professional gambler, James Flood, for nearly £250,000. The case arose over what the judge called a fraudulent bid by Mr. Flood. Gary Lloyd has the details.
It was the auction of a promising bay colt Sulafa, under blue colours on the left here, upon which the case turned. At a prestigious Tattersall's sale in Newmarket, a bid for the colt, reared by royal trainer Henry Cecil, reached 430,000 guineas. That bid, said the judge, came from Irish gambler James Flood, and he had no intention of paying. Mr. Flood claimed he'd stopped bidding at 410,000 guineas and promptly disappeared. 2 days later, Sulafa was re-auctioned and sold to Sheikh Hamdan Al Maktoum of Dubai for only 200,000 guineas, less than half the price. The colt's original owners, a Liechtenstein company called Alchemy International, said Tattersalls were negligent. They said the colt should have been re-auctioned the same day. But Mr. Justice Hurst cleared Tattersalls of negligence and said their witnesses were honest and straightforward. He couldn't say the same of James Flood, whom he branded a bombastic liar and a braggart. The judge said Mr. Flood almost boasted he was a gambling cheat. He did bid 430,000 guineas, he refused to identify himself afterwards, and he absconded with the greatest possible haste. The judge ordered him to pay the difference in price, 230,000 guineas with interest.
There were two big surprises on the third day of Wimbledon. First, the sun actually shone for a while. Then one of the top seeds, Mats Wilander, was knocked out by a 21-year-old ranked 77th in the world. Mark Austin reporting.
The sun came out for the first shock of Wimbledon. Wilander, the number 4 seed and a favourite to challenge McEnroe, was in big trouble against an unknown, Slobodan Živojinovic. The 6'6" Yugoslav took the first set 6-2. Wilander took the second set, but the form that has already won him the French and Australian titles this season seemed to have deserted him. The Yugoslav's big serve proved a handful for Wilander, and his name a mouthful for the umpire.
Advantage Živojinovic.
In the end, he won the match 6-2, 5-7, 7-5, 6-love, and that on his Wimbledon debut. And Britain's number 1, John Lloyd, came safely through the first round on court 1 this evening, beating Wolfgang Popp of West Germany. Lloyd, watched by wife Chris, was in aggressive mood and won in straight sets.
He's on
Now it's up to his wife, recovered from a neck injury, to start her more realistic championship challenge.
And now back to the bomb scare in Torquay. The Palm Court Hotel on the front has been evacuated after police found a suspect package hidden in one of the rooms. The entire seafront area has been cordoned off. Torquay is one of the resorts on the IRA's hit list, and it's understood that staff at the hotel recognised photographs of wanted men as people who'd recently stayed at the hotel. An army disposal team is on the scene. And finally, back to Wimbledon, where an unknown Australian model has become a film star overnight after being wrongly identified on television screens around the world as John McEnroe's girlfriend, actress Tatum O'Neill. Isabel Cowan was in the players' box watching McEnroe when cameras picked her out as Tatum. We made the same mistake ourselves. Today, Isabel admitted she was embarrassed, but flattered too. And that's it for now. You can see Newsnight at 5 to 11 on BBC Two, but from me, good night.